Windows has dominated the desktop computer market for decades, becoming the default operating system for millions of people around the world. Whether someone bought a laptop for school, work, gaming, or everyday use, Windows was almost always pre-installed. Because of this, most users never thought about trying another operating system. Linux was often seen as something only programmers or tech experts used, and many people believed it was too difficult for everyday users. But in recent years, something unexpected has started happening. More people are leaving Windows behind and giving Linux a serious chance. The question is, why are so many users making the switch? At first glance, many people assume Windows users are leaving because of performance issues or because Linux has suddenly become much faster. While those reasons do matter, they are only part of the story. The real reason behind this shift is much bigger. It involves privacy, control, hardware compatibility, software freedom, and the changing expectations of modern computer users. Linux has improved dramatically over the past decade, while Windows has introduced changes that many users simply don't like. One of the biggest turning points came with the release of Windows 11. Microsoft introduced strict hardware requirements that surprised millions of users. Computers that were only a few years old suddenly became unsupported because they lacked TPM 2.0 or newer processors. Many perfectly working PCs were told they couldn't officially upgrade, even though they were powerful enough for everyday tasks. For many users, this felt like being forced to replace hardware that still worked perfectly fine. Linux offered a completely different solution. Instead of forcing people to buy new computers, many Linux distributions continued supporting older hardware without any problems. Users discovered they could install Linux on 5, 8, or even 10-year-old computers and enjoy smooth performance again. Instead of throwing away perfectly usable machines, Linux gave them a second life. This became one of the strongest reasons people began considering Linux as a practical alternative. Another major reason people are leaving. Windows is the growing feeling that they no longer have complete control over their own computers. Windows 11 regularly introduces new features, advertisements, recommendations, AI tools, and cloud integrations that many users never asked for. Updates sometimes reinstall unwanted apps or change settings automatically. Microsoft also encourages users to sign in with Microsoft accounts, making the operating system feel more connected to Microsoft services than to the user's personal preferences. Linux takes a very different approach. Most Linux distributions don't require online accounts during installation, don't display advertisements, and don't push subscriptions or unnecessary services. The operating system feels simple and focused on the user's needs. Instead of constantly promoting additional features, Linux stays in the background and allows users to decide exactly how they want their computers to work. For many people, that sense of ownership is refreshing. Privacy has also become one of the biggest concerns in modern computing. As operating systems become more connected to cloud services, many users worry about how much data is being collected. Microsoft says its telemetry helps improve Windows, but some users prefer sharing as little information as possible. Linux distributions generally collect very little data, and because most of them are open source, anyone can inspect the code and understand exactly how the system works. This transparency gives users greater confidence in the operating system. Performance is another area where Linux continues to impress new users. Windows has grown significantly over the years, requiring more storage, more memory, and more background processes. Even powerful computers sometimes feel slower after major updates. Linux, on the other hand, often runs smoothly even on older hardware. Applications open quickly, startup times are fast, and system resources remain low. Many users are amazed by how responsive their computers become after installing Linux. Battery life has improved on Linux as well. Years ago, Linux laptops often struggled with battery optimization, but modern kernels and improved drivers have changed that. Many users now report battery performance that matches or even exceeds Windows on supported hardware. Combined with faster performance, this creates an overall experience that feels lighter and more efficient, especially on laptops used for schoolwork or travel. Developers have also played a huge role in Linux's growing popularity. Most internet servers already run Linux, and many modern development tools are designed with Linux environments in mind. Technologies like Docker, Kubernetes, Python, Node.js, and countless programming frameworks work naturally on Linux. Developers realize that using Linux on their desktop allows them to work in the same environment where their software will eventually run, making development simpler and more efficient. Students are following the same trend. Universities increasingly teach programming, cybersecurity, networking, and cloud computing using Linux-based systems. Learning Linux has become an important skill for anyone entering the technology industry. Instead of seeing Linux as something complicated, students now view it as a valuable tool that prepares them for future careers. As more educational institutions adopt Linux, more young users become comfortable using it every day. Gaming has also experienced one of the biggest transformations in Linux history. For years, gaming was considered Windows' greatest advantage. Most games simply didn't work on Linux, making it an unrealistic option for gamers. But Valve changed everything with Proton and the Steam Deck. Thousands of Windows games can now run on Linux with little or no extra setup. Many gamers who once dismissed Linux are now surprised by how well their favorite titles perform. Although not every game works perfectly, the situation has improved beyond what many people expected. Some multiplayer games still have anti-cheat limitations, but the overall gaming experience continues getting better every year. The conversation has shifted from asking whether games can run on Linux to asking which games still require Windows. That change alone has encouraged thousands of gamers to experiment with Linux for the first time. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have also increased Linux adoption. Researchers, engineers, and AI enthusiasts often find Linux easier for installing development tools, GPU drivers, Python libraries, and machine learning frameworks. As local AI models become more popular, Linux has become an attractive platform for experimentation. Many users who initially install Linux for AI development eventually begin using it for all of their daily work. Another reason Linux continues growing is the strength of its community. Unlike commercial operating systems controlled by a single company, Linux benefits from thousands of developers and volunteers around the world. Users constantly share tutorials, themes, troubleshooting guides, desktop setups, and productivity tips. Beginners rarely have to solve problems alone because active communities are always available to help. This welcoming environment makes learning Linux much less intimidating than it once was. Customization is another feature that attracts many users. Windows offers some personalization options, but Linux allows users to completely redesign their desktop experience. Different desktop environments, themes, icons, layouts, keyboard shortcuts, and workflows allow every user to create a system that perfectly matches their personal preferences. Whether someone wants a modern interface, a traditional desktop, or a minimal workspace, Linux offers almost unlimited flexibility. Software installation has also become much easier. Modern Linux distributions include software centers that work much like smartphone app stores. Instead of searching random websites for installers, users can browse trusted repositories and install applications with a single click. Package managers also make updates simple by allowing the operating system and installed software to update together, improving both convenience and security. Of course, Linux is not perfect. Some professional applications, especially Adobe software, still have limited or no native Linux support. Certain businesses rely on Windows-only applications that cannot easily be replaced. Some hardware devices may still require additional configuration, and beginners need time to learn new workflows. Linux also offers many different distributions, which can confuse people who don't know where to start. However, these challenges continue becoming smaller as Linux improves every year. Many people don't immediately replace Windows completely. Instead, they install Linux alongside Windows in a dual boot setup. At first, they use Linux only occasionally while keeping Windows for familiar tasks. Over time, they begin spending more hours inside Linux because it feels faster, cleaner, and less distracting. Eventually, some users realize they haven't opened Windows in weeks, making the decision to switch permanently much easier than they expected. Perhaps the most important reason Linux is growing isn't because Windows has suddenly become a bad operating system. Windows still serves millions of users successfully and remains the best choice for many businesses and professionals. The real story is that Linux has matured into a reliable, polished, and user-friendly operating system capable of meeting the needs of everyday users. What was once considered a niche platform has become a serious competitor. Today's computer users value privacy, freedom, transparency, customization, and long-term hardware support more than ever before. Linux delivers these qualities without forcing users into subscriptions, advertisements, or unnecessary services. At the same time, improvements in gaming, software compatibility, hardware support, and ease of use have removed many of the barriers that once prevented people from switching. So is Windows 11 really losing users? In some communities, the answer is yes. Developers, students, gamers, privacy enthusiasts, and everyday computer users are increasingly exploring Linux and discovering that it offers exactly what they have been looking for. The biggest surprise isn't that people are leaving Windows, it's that Linux has evolved into an operating system where users no longer feel like they're making sacrifices. Instead, many discover a faster, simpler, and more personal computing experience that finally puts them back in control of their own computers.